Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this month's Esport and Gaming Meetup. This time, we will be talking about international teams, international esports teams. If you remember, previous month, we were talking about revenue streams within the esports industry. So how to make money, how to make a living out of the things you do. Now we'll be stepping into a series of case studies. Let's say we'll be inviting guests that set up organizations, that are leading organizations, and we'll be hearing their stories, how they managed to build these stories, how they managed to sustain these stories or not to sustain them yet, and how are they seeking for revenue, and what are the challenges that they're facing. So in the scope of this month, first topic is, okay, before you can seek some revenue to maintain your organization, first you need to build an organization. You need to have a relationship with the members of your organization. In this case, with Jarco, we'll be talking about the esports teams, so players organized in teams. And in Jarco's case, this will be about an international teams. So he'll be giving more insight into that. Before we jump into the topic, I would gladly welcome also all the audience. Still keep coming in, and feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand or jump in the conversations. Feel free to turn on your cameras and be engaged in the discussions. This event is recorded and will be uploaded to our channel afterwards. The purpose of these meetups overall is to share knowledge and to gather the community and to share opinions. So like I said, feel free to jump in. I'm Tom Udupivec. I'm the founder and CEO of Reveris. This is an accelerator, so a business accelerator for gaming and esports companies. And what we talk here is part of our mission to connect the community, to educate, and to bring successful, sustainable businesses in the gaming and esports industry to life. That said, I'm jumping today to present our guest, Jarco. Thanks for joining us. He's a friend from Belgium. He's been running, he's founded and is now running the DRGN Gaming Esports organization, pronounced Dragon Gaming. Correct me if I'm wrong.
This is correct.
Great. Thanks, Jarco. He is studying, already completed some of the studies, I'm not sure, in business economics and marketing communication. So it's quite in line with the skills required to part of the skills required to run such organizations. And before I go into the discussion topics, I would ask you, Jarco, a few words about you, yourself, and your background.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Tom, and thank you as well, everyone who's here. I'm happy to be here. So yeah, I'm Jarco. I'm 21 years old. I live in Belgium, and my biggest passion has always been esports, gaming, and it's something that I got into thanks to my older cousin. It all started with CSGO in the beginning, and from there started playing a bit and really started developing a passion for everything that has to do with esports. Yes, you can say, Tom.
Great. No, great. Thanks. You will tell us. I will dig deeper, but let's jump actually in the first topic. So you are now leading an international organization. Dragon Gaming has a number of teams. Can you outline a little bit of what do you do today as an organization?
Yes, for sure. So Dragon Gaming is an esports team, but also event organizer. The events I'm gonna come back on later. So the players, we have several teams. We have a CSGO team, 3 PUBG teams, a Rocket League team, and a League of Legends team. And everything started, well, basically from scratch. When I started first day with Dragon Gaming, I didn't have any people to help me, so I just went from scratch, looking for players, looking for people who are willing to be a part of the esports scene, who are willing to grow and who are really passionate about it. The first couple of months have been really difficult finding people. And you notice that as well in the esports scene, stepping in as a new organization with already many organizations out there, others who might already be bigger than you. So you really come in, well, from nowhere. People don't know you, and you have to try somehow find the people, the players who can help you grow, who can help you take to the next level. And that's the biggest challenge to start with. And for me, personal communication with every single member of the organization is always top priority. It doesn't matter for me if you are my first management assistant or if you are a player from the academy team. Like for me, every single member of the organization has the same value, and everyone needs to be in touch with me as well. I could be the kind of owner who just sits back and looks at what is happening, or I could be the kind of owner who talks with players weekly, who talks with management weekly. And that's something that I do. Like I really push that communication. That's something that I find very important. And as well, because not only is it important to know who your people are, who you work with, and what the goals are and how you communicate about that, but also just next to that, getting to know each other, building a bond, becoming friends, I would say. I think that's something very important, not just in an esports organization, but in any organization. You need to have trust with the people you work with. You need to feel confident around them, because if there's no trust and if you are feeling like someone's not accessible who is above you and giving you certain directions and expecting certain things from you, I think it's a big issue if you cannot talk to that person in that case.
Yeah, I will. Thanks. I will roll back a little bit, and we'll come back to the relationship towards your team members and help in administrating stuff. Come a bit later. I would like to ask you. You said you listed 6 teams, 5, 6 teams.
6.
Okay, great. Can you tell me a little bit? So for how long have you been running this? When did you start?
Okay, so I started on the 21st of February, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Then I started as myself, as a player still at that moment. I started looking for players in CSGO only. So I started with Counter-Strike, and the reason is, well, it's the biggest esports game out there. And also there's a lot of people who are looking to get into the scene. So I started with looking for players for CSGO myself as a player at that moment, while also doing everything next to playing. And it's been a tough journey. I've spent about 6 to 8 months trying to set a single team all the way from scratch. And the reason for that is, well, you try to see as many people as possible. You try to find the people who fit within your ideas, your goals, your mission with the team.
Sorry, I will interrupt you just from time to time. Okay, it's really interesting, but then why did you even have this let's say motivation? Why did you go in building a team? What was the deciding factor here? Oh yeah, today I'm gonna go and build a team now.
Yeah. Well, the deciding factor was actually being kicked out of my previous team. But it was actually a bit of things going around. So I was part of an esports organization, which is located in the UK. and I was one of the main players for the CSGO team there. And they also had an academy team. But there always had been some issues between the academy team and the main team with certain players. I was not directly a part of that, luckily, but that was where I noticed that communication in that organization that I was a part of then, it wasn't optimal, it wasn't going the way it should. And then suddenly from one week to the other, I was out of the team, out of the organization, and I did not even get a single message at all about what happened, why decisions were made and stuff like that. And that was the thing for me, and also the passion. So for me, it was, I'm passionate about esports. I want to build something in this, and I want to do it better than the way I have been treated in the other organizations.
Good motivation. Good, nice motivation. Nice reason. Okay, thanks. And then you went out and started assembling the first CSGO, the first team, which was CSGO, because you were a CSGO player. And you said it took you a little more than half a year. It was tough, you said, and I see a question from Jiva in the chat. So what was the toughest thing in these 6 months, and how did you manage to get over this first bump?
To get over this first bump, you need to know from start where you want to go. If you're saying I'm going to look for players and I'll see where I get, then it's not going to work out. Before you start with everything, you already need to have an idea in your head from I want to end at this place with the team for the first coming events. So first thing, having a plan. And to overcome the first bump, like I said, it took 6 months to build the first team. And the reason it was so difficult as well, because people were not always just as passionate about the team, about the organization, or people had different thoughts about themselves as a player already, or had different goals. And to get over that, well, the most important thing about it is that you are consistent and that you keep pushing in what you do. You can't say, I'm going to start with this. And if you have 2 tough months, you're like, okay, I'm going to stop. And all the work that I did until now, it's going to be for nothing. I think if you start with it, you really need to have that passion to drive through it. And you need to have at least one person to help you. I had some people who I knew in the CSGO scene, not necessarily a part of our organization, but just people I knew in the scene, people who had good connections. And it's really important to at least get a bit of advice from other people as well, and a bit of help, because you can do everything from start to finish, but you need to find someone who you can trust, and someone who you can rely on. And if things don't go easy, like it went for me in the first 6 months, you really just need to keep pushing yourself through it. And you need to look back at what you have done already. And it's not really a straightforward question. Like, it's something that also happens a bit, like getting through that first bump, getting over that difficulty from finding players. It's something that happens if you keep pushing through. It's not something that I would say that you can really plan. It's something that just comes at you at the right time. Does it take just 1 month, 2 months, or for me, 6 months? That doesn't matter. And the main thing is that you stick true to what your idea is.
Yeah, and you have to set this clear before you even start.
Yes, indeed.
You said have always at least one person that you can ask for advice, ask for help. It's the same nearly in every new path, new project, new business, new entrepreneurial path. There is always the first advice: have someone who's been there or who can take you to another perspective, or who can give you some motivation or some advice. It's also in the entrepreneurial world, it's a similar story. How did this, can you give me maybe a specific example? How did this person, or or these people who were helping you and not part of the, how did they help you? Some like one specific, for example.
Yeah. With the first CSGO team that we had, I had one person who helped me kind of with the management around the players. So what I did with that other person then, we would check in with every single player on the team, like what their time schedules are, how are they doing, do they have work, do they have university, stuff like that. So it's coming a bit back to what I mentioned earlier about the personal communication. And that's something that I had help with from someone of the team. So I assigned team captains per team, someone who's responsible for the team in general. But every single team captain always also checks in with me, and we always discuss things together and going forward with players.
Okay. Okay, so this is the advice that you got from these friends that helped you.
Yes.
I see another question in the chat. I will read it in a minute because it's actually very overlapping with my next question. But just a quick intermezzo here. To welcome everyone who joined in a couple of last minutes. We are talking about with Jarco from Belgium. He's leading an esports organization which has 6 international teams under the roof, and on top of that, he's also organizing competition events. We were also talking about that. So the idea of this month's meetup is to look into an example of an organization, how is it run, and what are the plans, how can make a living out of it, considering that the previous time we were discussing about revenue in esports and how to live out of this. So this is the continuation of the series. Jarco, just one last question here, I mean, one bit of question before we go to the next how to find players. You said you need a plan, you need a clear idea. What does this really mean? Or let's say, how did you produce this plan? Did you sit down? Did you brainstorm? Did you write stuff? I know that you have the education that you can write some things like business plans and in this kind of sense. So what exactly did you do to get this plan straight before you started?
Yeah. So I started writing out a business plan, not really biggest in like terms of financial stuff, but mainly in what the goals are and what the idea behind the organization is. That was the first thing I started with. And the next thing after that was just looking out for opportunities and going to look for people everywhere online. So the start really was writing out a business plan and then looking for all the possible points of contacts you have towards other people.
So you engaged your network.
Yes, indeed.
Network of connections. Great, and this brings us to the question that the team posted in the chat. So where and how did you recruit the people for your team, and how did you convince them to join despite your young age? How did you convince them that you are serious about this?
Yeah, that's been the most difficult thing. Like people always guess me a lot younger than I am as well. So when I started, it was only 19 when I started with the organization. And people thought I was still like 15 or 16 years old. That was sometimes funny, but sometimes also a bit difficult to work with. But basically, it was just going into a meeting with every single person you get in contact with, telling them your plan and your ideas, showing them everything which you worked out, and also showing them the goals for the future. And once the goals are reached, what do you want to do after that? When it came to convincing players to join the organization, of course, when I started, I didn't have a lot to offer just yet. Like I could offer a CSGO server for practice, maybe some speaking services like TeamSpeak, by example. But like I'm not at the stage. I wasn't at the stage where I could pay players monthly or weekly. So there, the really tough thing to do is, well, convincing them, and that you have to do at one side by explaining your plan and your idea and what your goals are, And the other thing is just be honest about it. Don't promise players that you say, oh, in 2 months, everyone's going to get this and this. No, what you have to do from the first start is just be honest to everyone who you meet and tell them how the situation is, what the goals are within the first few months, within the next years, and let's say within 10 years. You have to be honest about everything from scratch, because as soon as people start noticing that you are not honest about something, you're going to lose reputation. And that's something that's going to hit back on you in the long run. Um, that's something that's within a later stadium now. We have 3 PUBG teams, by example, now. And one of those PUBG teams joined because of the good reputation which we had beforehand. So it's really just being true to yourself, being true to your goals, and being true to everyone who gets in that journey.
Very nicely put. Thanks. Great words and great to hear. And so I think to reiterate, you convinced the players because you had a good plan in place, you had the good goals in place, because you took the time to formulate them, to clarify them, to put them in writing, so you know where you were heading and you know how to present this story. So that's what gave you credibility and helped you overcome the challenge of persuading people to join in. Because as a new organization, you can't pay them yet, but you can onboard them on your story and your vision, and if it's solid enough, you find people who think alike, you can motivate them, work together. Great. And you found them in the beginning through your network. You said directly to your network, right? Okay, so you said at the very beginning, you said find the players who can help you grow, help you get to the next level. Now, I think maybe if you go to the first Discord server, you can invite their people, you will find some people who would join immediately. How to find those that can help you grow?
Yeah. So to find those who help you grow is, first of all, looking at people who are a bit more known in the scene, but who are currently without a team. And from there is a starting point. Going to look for players who already are in the scene, who already have a bit of credibility, and who are already a bit known. That's a starting point, because you can reach out to them, you can check in with them, what they want to do in the further careers. But what you also can do is getting in touch with these more known players, and then having them to help you guide towards other players they know who are still looking for a team. The first thing to find the right place, like you said, you can just join any CSGO or whatever game Discord. You can say looking for people, and there's certainly going to be someone who's available. But you have to test the qualities of every single player. And with that, I mean playing with them. You can't sign someone without having seen them played, without knowing their play style. And that's for any game that you go into. You need to have practice with people. And before people officially join the organization, you need to have at least a period, I would say almost 1 to 2 months of preparation for your first team before you actually set it. Because what you see with a lot of teams is, okay, you play a few games with certain people, it goes well, you think, okay, we have a team. After 1 week, team is set. 2 weeks later, you have bad results, someone's not feeling well anymore, they leave, team disbanded, and that's it, everything gone in 3 weeks. It's really important to, from start to finish, yeah.
Yeah, you just, sorry to interrupt, you just gave me a great idea.
No
so I could assemble a really strong team that is a stress test for new teams. You know, you go and you totally destroy them just to see how well they manage to survive together and pick up the forces again till next time. So this might be actually a deliberate test for newly formed teams. Let them see how they cope with failure for a couple of weeks straight, and if they survive that, then they are good. They can go further.
Yes, exactly. Like that is also the main reason why it took 6 months for me to build the first team. Like, and in those 6 months, I've had several teams, but like no official lineups which were like fully set. And the reason for that is, well, because after 1 month, one player left. 2 months later, maybe someone else or half of the team had some issues. So you really got to take your time before making any official lineups within just any game.
Okay, and so how many players did you have? Did you have always like 5 players at a time? So it was you plus 4 players all
Yes,
the time, or was there always a couple of them that were still in and out, and you kind of trying them out and seeing?
yeah, we had backup players, so we always kept 2 to 3 backup players. Reason is, well, one, in case someone would drop out, you have someone to step in who knows already a bit of the playstyle of the team and already knows a bit of the people. Because if you only have 5 people available for a team where you need 5 people and one drops out, well, if you need to start looking for someone new, then you're gonna have to first do the entire process of finding the right player again, and then you're gonna have to do the process of teaching him everything which you've learned until that point with the current team available. So it's really keeping people back up and making sure that you don't fall behind and back into the process all the way from scratch.
I agree. We have another question in chat. I will come back to that in maybe 5 minutes, because it is also one of the questions on my agenda, but thanks, Vuk. I will read it out loud in a second. Tell me, so it took you, okay, these 6 months in and out with different lineups to form the first team. But we said now, okay, the organization is 2 years old. So, and you have 6 teams now. So it took you, okay, let's say 8 months to build the first one, and it took you then 16 months to build 5 more. So let's say three months per a new team, something like that. So you decrease the time by half. So why? How? What's the difference? What do you do now differently that you didn't do when you were setting up the first team?
The difference is, well, for the first time, you really got to get into like knowing how people talk and how they think. It's a bit of a psychology thing, I would say. When you start with this entirely new and not having any experience in the scene, it's difficult to convince people or to be convinced about them. And that's something that changed after those first 6 months, after setting a first lineup. After that, I already had a feeling like, okay, if I talk with certain people for a new team, I already had a feeling in those talks what people were actually passionate about esports and joining the organization, and what people were like, yeah, if this team works out, fine, but if it doesn't, I don't care. Like that's something that you start to learn and notice a lot faster, more and more, the more experience you get. If you get into a meeting with a player and you ask the player, well, you say to the player, our goal is to reach semi-professional leagues. What is your goal there? And if they say, I think that I want to make it to that point, it's already a bit of well, I would say a red flag. That they are not convinced yet about themselves. If they start saying with, I think I want to reach this level, or I think that is something that I want to go to, it's already something that you know this is not going to work out. You really need people who are confident from the very first second about what their goals are joining the organization, and well, also as a player in general.
Okay, so you learned to screen people, to filter people much better during this time, and this actually then enabled you to shorten the time to form teams.
Yes.
So if you have okay 6 teams, so it's around 30 people more or less. How many people have you interviewed, screened, played against them in those 2 years?
I think in those 2 years for CS:GO, I will probably be over 100 players. So
just for CS:GO, just for CS:GO.
Just for CS:GO, I've been over 100 players doing interviews, all stuff around it. So 100 players, that's almost, well, in 2 years, that's more than 1 player per day, you have to say. No, what am I saying? What?
Not that much.
Sorry. I'm
it's 1 per week. It's 1 per week. Yeah.
1 per week. I'm a bit confused. Sorry, I was completely miscalculating.
No worries. But it's just for CS:GO.
Yes, just for CS:GO. Then with the other teams, PUBG was a bit easier because the first player I found there already had a bit experience in the scene. I knew some people as well in the scene who were looking for teams and had good relationships. So I think for PUBG, until now we've had, I think, 30 players in total, everything from start. So for PUBG.
Okay.
So that's also quite a big amount, and it's basically more than 7 teams if you would have a full lineup.
Okay.
But of course, it's a number which I now say from my head could definitely have been more, but you meet a lot of people, just very many.
So what could we say? So if it's just 100 from CS:GO, what we can say that you interviewed 200 people, 300 people.
Yes, something like that.
Something along those lines, which is, if we calculate it, it's 2 players per week, at least.
Yes.
At least, which is quite a tempo, okay, of interviewing all the time, non-stop, every week. Okay. Tell me, you build up the teams, you build up quite a number of them. What about, so we're talking about the players, what about the organization itself? So the managing structure, the administration of the organization, is it you who's running everything? Are you still an active member of one of the teams, or you moved up to managing and arranging the stuff? You have anyone to help you with this?
I moved up fully to management, and the reason for that is because, well, it was simply impossible to combine playing and investing a lot of time into practice and tournaments, and in the meanwhile managing other teams. Like the combination of that is too much, and also because I'm still going to university, I also have school to think about. So it's really, you have to split up the things. You either go into playing and have someone helping you with management, or you do the management like fully, because it's impossible to combine both. And when it comes to management, I set team captains for every single team. We take a bit of the lead in that team. We decide a bit about the schedules for the teams for practice and stuff like that. But when it comes to general management, so everything from administration in the organization, but also social media, everything from graphic designs to finding people to work with, for, by example, to cast events which you are playing in or hosting. Like all that stuff is on me. So we do not have a graphic designer or anything. So I'm designing graphics, I'm managing people, I'm also casting matches over teams. I'm basically doing everything from start to finish if it's not playing. So that's the biggest the biggest, I can't get to the word, challenge.
So you are the guerrilla guy.
Yes.
doing everything. So I will be a little bit, I will tease you a little bit. So you must really dislike playing that you like to do everything else.
No, actually not. The thing is, as a player, like I was decent, but I know if I want to reach certain goals, which I have set with the organization, I know for myself, I cannot make that as a player. I know I'm not at that skill level. And of course, that's something at first that's not fun if you have to step down from playing. Well, that's the thing what's been driving you to get into this esports scene. But you have to think about the bigger picture. You have to think about what are my goals and can I reach that if I'm a player myself, or do I need to find other people um, who play the game? And I think that's something that you really need to know from the start as well. And if it's not from the start, you have to at least realize in the months when you are managing and playing at the same time, you really have to know what you need to do to achieve what you yeah, set as a goal.
Yeah, that's right. You still keep returning back to your plans, keep returning back to your vision, your goal, your dreams. This is why it's so
Yes.
critical that you have it straightly set up. It might change over time, but it's right that you have it. You have an anchor that you keep returning to, and this is where the light that guides you. And actually, I will now go to both questions in the chat. And first, Goran's, that you read my mind. So in the long term, Goran says, I think that will not be possible for you to do all the things alone. Definitely. You will have to drop out of university. I'm kidding. Don't do that. No.
I'm not planning to.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Yeah. So what do you think? How will you manage to expand your managing department? So did you already try that before? Okay, you put some of the workload on the leads, you said, but as far as I understand,
Yes.
this is still more related to people management and to communication. But what about all the
Yes.
other aspects that you described a little bit earlier? How will you manage that if you expand?
So that's something that I've been looking into. I've been looking to find people who can do graphics design. I've been looking for people who can do a bit more of the administration, stuff like that. But the most difficult thing about it is, well, at this moment, we're an esports organization which is still growing, and we do not have a budget to pay people full time. That is something which we do not have available, and that is the biggest difficulty, finding people. Like if people are looking for something, like to work somewhere as a graphics designer or in the management, many people are expecting payments. That's normal as well because of the work they put in. But you need to find people who either want to invest into the organization together with you, or you need to find people who believe in your story and become shareholders of the organization. That is how you need to expand at first in the management. And of course, well, the first couple of weeks when you assign someone to do a certain task, you need to help them. You can't assign a person in your organization which, for instance, joins for everything that's to do with administration, paperwork, stuff like that. Like you cannot expect someone to join and to just be like, okay, here are your documents, go ahead. Like you can't do that. You really need to guide people into the organization if you want to make them feel a part of it, and well, get the experience as well and going further. And that's already setting a bond as well. Like if you're helpful towards the people who join in the management, they are more likely to stay than if you're like, okay, here's your documents and go ahead, I want this next week. Like it's a different approach. It's really the approach which is making it personal and um,
Yeah,
just like that, convincing people to be a part of what you do.
yeah, it's like founding, I mean, an organization, a company is an organization, an esports team is an organization, a club of esports teams is an organization. It's always the same story. At the beginning, you work on the promise of building something together, and this promise must be watertight, you know, and this is what you can then bring together, people who you can work with. And like you described earlier, This holds true for the players, but also for the management or graphic designers or anyone in administration. So the end of the day is to build a great core team of people who can run the organization. And everybody does his job. The players do their job, the team leads do their job, the graphic designer, and you. Great. And now we go into the $1 million question. So now you will tell us when do we invest in you? So Vuk asked, what is your long-term plan from both competition and business standpoint? So, and then the next question is, at what percentage of this journey you are at the moment?
Yeah. So for our teams, for every single team, we have set certain requirements. For CSGO, our main focus is on ESA competitions. I think that everyone here knows ESA, the platform. The main thing that we focus on there is the ESA Open, Intermediate, Main, Advanced, all those leagues. And the reason for that is, well, one, there's a lot of teams in those leagues, a lot of bigger organizations as well. And it's really best of the best players who go into the higher leagues. So for ESA, that is the main goal for the CSGO team, being part of the bigger leagues there. Then for PUBG, currently one of our PUBG teams is playing in PUBG Finland Season 8. If you go to Twitch, you could probably find the stream right now. But we are currently one of the top 48 teams in Europe with PUBG, with the roster that we have. And that is something which I at first want to confirm in the coming months. And from there on out, try to be even a bigger team, like let's say even top 16. Because we now qualified for the 5th round of the PUBG Finland tournament, which is like 32 teams left in the competition. And that's really where you start playing against, well, the professional teams. So that for PUBG, it's really just being one of the top contenders teams, which our goal is. And it's also easier to do that because the scene is a lot smaller than CSGO. CSGO, by example, has over thousands of teams in the scene for amateur, semi-pro, and pro level. Like there's many teams in that scene. For PUBG, you don't have 1,000 teams within Europe. You don't have 1,000 teams currently at this moment. So if you want to differentiate yourself within a scene that is smaller, you have to set a higher goal. And that is which we have set for PUBG as well in the competition. We want to be one of the 32 best teams in Europe. And we want to maintain that position if the scene starts growing again. Because you can set a certain goal for the scene when you start into it. But if the scene grows, by example, and you start losing your spot, you're falling behind on the new competitors that are coming in. So the goal there, top 32 team and growing.
Okay, this is the long-term goal for being competitive. So here, do you plan on keeping the same number of teams and working on the quality of those? Do you plan to expand in other games? Do you plan to multiply the number of teams on the current games that you have?
Currently, the goal is to improve the quality on our teams which we have. The reason for that is, well, you could have 20 different teams, but if you're gonna have 20 teams, it's gonna be a mess. You're not gonna get every single team at the goal which you want to achieve. It's not always possible to reach your goal for every single thing you have set. And I think that you also need to focus on a few games instead of trying to be the competitor in any game out there. Because if you split your focus on too many things, the quality is not going to be there, and simply because of the reason that you don't have time to invest into the teams which you have. If you have 3 or 4 teams in games which you are already a bit into and know the scene, then it's something you can manage. But if you're going to have 20 teams and you're going to need a manager for every single team, you're going to need people who know the scene very well. Um, it's going to start becoming a mess, and there's no way that you can keep up with every single team every single day, on what they are doing, how they are growing, how they are practicing. So you really got to maintain your focus on the main goals, and the main things you want to be a part of.
Okay. Then if I ask you here, why then not even one team? Why not just one team? Why 6?
The reason I have 6 teams, 2 teams are academy teams, so just youngsters, people, developing themselves, as they are not allowed in many tournaments yet to compete. We have, for the PUBG, by example, you need to at least be 16 to compete in tournaments, and 18 for like the official PUBG tournaments. So we have 2 academy teams which are not priority, but are just part of the organization as well, a bit to develop themselves as players for a potential future career, and also to bring a bit of exposure towards the organization, showing that you invest in young people, that you really step into the boat with the other competitors, because the newer generations who are coming up are the ones who are going to be in esports within 10 years. Like people who are older are not really as much into the esports scene, or you see many people at the age of, I'd say, 35. You see a lot of esporters at that age who are quitting the scene because the newer generations who are coming up are showing, a lot of new ways of playing games.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Makes sense. Yeah, and the second third of Vuk's question. So, what about from a business standpoint? What do you
From a
plan
business
there?
standpoint, I wanted to be able to make a living out of the organization. So I wanted to become big enough to say that I can work on the organization as a full-time job. And the reason for that is, well, one, it's my passion, and I didn't start this to cancel it within a couple of years. I want to make a living out of the organization which I'm building. I want to become a competitor in the scene. I want to set a certain statement as well about the organization, and that you can come from scratch, and that you can, if you really put the hard effort into it, that you can grow. So yeah, making a living is the main business goal for the organization, but also having it being sustainable for the players. You could be sustainable working in the management of an organization, but you could have teams behind that who do not earn, or just earn very little from playing on the team. Like that is not the goal. And the goal is to make sure that every single person in the organization, if it's going for something that you can do as a full-time job, that this counts for both management and players.
Okay, and if we then take your numbers of 6 teams, you need to build a company that will sustain around 50 employees.
Yes.
50 full-time employees. Right? This is quite a big feat. And how are you going to achieve that? What are the plans to get there?
So the plan to get there is basically taking it step by step. Like you can't expect to be a fully sustainable esports organization within just 1 or 2 years. That's simply not possible unless you win the lotto, like a super jackpot somewhere. You have 100 million, but everyone knows the chance for that is small. So you really got to take your time, and you got to do everything step by step, because if you
Which
skip
steps?
certain steps,
Which steps?
so the first step is setting a plan, setting your goals to start with. The second step is dividing those goals into periods. You have a main goal, which is for me making a sustainable esports organization. But I have goals set between that. And the first goal is finding sponsors for the teams that you have. And that doesn't necessarily have to be thousands of euros into every single team. No, you need to find a sponsor who believes in your teams and in your organization. And you have to start small and slightly grow step by step, because let's say you make out a business plan, you say, okay, with 100,000 I can do this, and you skip the step of sponsors and immediately step to an investor or to a bank to get a loan or something. Like, if you're not going to have already something built up, there's no way that people are going to invest into your organization. You need to have steps between it. You need to first have a plan, then you need to find sponsors, and then you need to improve the quality of your team, get new sponsors, and just keep continuing that cycle
Keep
of
the ball rolling.
improving teams and then growing a bigger revenue with sponsors and stuff like that.
And if we say that you now have been on this path for 2 years, and that the end goal for this organization is all making a living out of it, how far are you on this on achieving this goal? Not in terms of percentage,
I think that it's a very difficult question. I like the question as well. Like, it's something that you never really know how far you are, because you never know the challenges that's gonna pop up in 2 months, in a year, 2 years. Like, it's always something that depends a bit on how things go as well with the teams that you have. But I think if, like, I'm gonna put a percentage on it either way. I think if I had to put a percentage onto it, at this very moment, I would say that I'm probably at max 10% of that. And the reason for that is, well, it seems less 10% of what you want to achieve, but you got to take into account that the first 2 years is building up, getting teams who are staying in the organization, and building a bit of an image around your brand. And that's the very first thing. And that is the 10%, which I mentioned. But everything after that, the 90% remaining, sponsors, tournament results, winning events, potentially investors, news articles, being, well, reaching a lot of followers on social media, creating a fan base, all that stuff is something remaining, that 90%. The first step is having a plan and building up towards that. But the biggest part of it is, well, creating a fan base, creating an environment around your organization, and making sure that people know about you, that you are a competitor in the scene, that you win events, that people want to invest into you. It's really a big thing to think about, and it's something that just doesn't fall out of the air right into your hands. It's something that you really have to work on.
So what do we say? If it took you 2 years to build the 10%, because it's the groundwork that you need to set, then what, 2-3 years to achieve your goals? 2-3 years more?
It's definitely going a lot faster. The 90% after that. The first 10% is the toughest. That is the biggest challenge you have to face, starting with just any organization. That's not only for esports, but any organization.
It's everywhere in life.
Every single startup, yes, you need to challenge yourself those first months, 1 or 2 years, and push through the difficulties you have then. Because that's the biggest difficulty, getting into the scene when nobody knows you, and that's just for general businesses as well. Let's say you're selling socks or something. If nobody knows you, nobody's going to buy your stuff. So
Exactly.
You have to grow. You
Yeah.
really have to grow and make sure people know you. And from that point out, once people start to know you, you can really, yeah, take a big jump going to the next steps into the process.
And
So
thanks. Yeah. And the spot on question from Tim in chat: how big is your fan base now?
our fan base now, it's not the biggest because our biggest audience is from our esports events. Um, People know us in the PUBG scene because of the event which we host. I think if you would ask at least 60 or 70% of the competitive PUBG players about our organization or about the league, that they know who we are. And that's something nice to find out. And I actually got a notification that my laptop battery is almost empty, so I'm quickly gonna take the charger.
Go for it.
So that I don't drop out of this meeting would not be nice. Okay. Apologies for this disturbance.
No
Just
worries.
a second.
I have one more question, 5 more minutes for our speaker. If you would like to, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat or just feel free to interrupt, unmute yourself and ask up front.
Yeah, so I'm going to continue on the question. I also see you ask if I have a Discord server. Yes, we have a Discord server, a community server for the people who want to follow up with the team, everything that's happening around it. So we have the community. I think right now in Discord is about almost 200 members in the Discord server. And in our event server, we have about 1,000 people at this moment. So people know us already, but we are not the team yet. Although that we are now one of the best teams in PUBG in Europe with the current lineup. Creating a fan base is something that you do over years. Just with a single result, you're not going to create thousands or hundreds of fans. You have to keep a certain lineup for a certain amount of time, and you have to be consistent with their performances. Like the team has to show themselves as who they are, what they can achieve, and you need to create content around that. That is something that I'm currently working on. We want to do interviews with players who are currently part of the organization. Well, videos of getting to know players more, just creating content so people who see your organization, that they also have a personal touch with you, because you could be a team competing in events, winning everything, and being offensive towards other competitors or to an audience, or you could be the competitor who gets results and is interactive with the people who watch, is nice towards others, and sets a good example for those watching.
Yeah, great. Before I go into another question in the chat, I would just say that we will prolong for 5 minutes more, then we are over. The last the last question from my end is actually related to the fan base, and related to the fact that your teams are international. Now, I would imagine also you haven't said much details about where these teams are, so maybe this would be a good opportunity. But
Yeah.
just to spark it off, I imagine if you have a local team for a city, okay, it's easier to imagine that probably the local population will relate to them, and maybe this is how you can get the fan base, at least this
Yes.
relation to them. You have international teams. How do you see this working in such a scope? So first, where are your teams, and how do you build the fan base in such a case?
Yeah. So our players are from Denmark, the UK, the Netherlands, the Balkan region, so Croatia, Serbia. We also have players from Cyprus. So players come from everywhere in Europe. So everything happens online, of course.
So if you sorry, so you can't rely
Yeah.
on the the local area if the teams are mixed. So this is
Yes.
slightly harder. Then you have to build a more unique identity, like you said earlier.
Yeah. So when you want to create a fan base in the esports scene, if you gonna solely rely on results, by example, you're not gonna create a big fan base, and simply because there's a lot of teams in any scene and any competitive scene. Just on results, you're not only gonna build a bigger fan base. You have to create content around it. Have the players stream as well, and the most important is friends of the people, the players, that they get a bit involved with the organization. Not necessarily as a member, but by example, we have a CSGO team who I cast the matches of, and every single match they ask their friends to be present at casting and to support the team. And you see when other peoples are cheering for the team, that gets other people rolling with it as well. And it's a bit weird to say, but that's how it goes with big teams as well. Like if you see big teams winning a championship, that team suddenly gets a lot more fans. And that is because, well, the team, one, performs well, and two, they see a lot of other fans for the team. And that's a bit the thing, like you have to start small with the friends and the people that you know who can support you, show some support, and you gotta get people involved in that. You really have to have that personal touch with fans.
Right. Okay. And I'm done with my questions. I would love 100 more things to ask you, and maybe about you also organizing one of the most let's say popular events for PUBG. Maybe we talk this some other time. We'll talk more about teams this time. But Basholino in chat has a spot on question to let's say to finish or to give advice or further challenges that are yet unsolved in the future. How do you convince sponsors? How do you convince sponsors and donators that you are better, or somehow to choose you instead of other similar organizations? There is a zillion possibilities where a sponsor could put his money in. How do you convince him to put the money in you?
So the first thing is having a good reputation and being available on social media, like promoting your brand and showing yourself to the world. Like if you have a team and they participate in events, but you barely post about it, you're not gonna have any luck finding sponsors or convincing people about your organization. You really need to create the content that goes with it. You need to be accessible. You need to be present on social media. For us, our biggest social media platform is Twitter, by example. So you need to be accessible. That's the first thing. Then convincing sponsors is one by showing them your plans, your goals, and what they should be investing in and why that it will be beneficial to the sponsor. So by example, if you say to a sponsor, I'm looking for this amount of money, and in return, you will get this and this. But in the meanwhile, our team will grow to this and this. So this will also be beneficial for the organization, for you as a sponsor in the future. The biggest difficulty there is, well, since there's a lot of teams, you really have to be unique. That starts with one, a good reputation, but two, also having a plan behind that. And also, if you want to convince sponsors, numbers are very important. For me, example, our Twitter page, the first 2 months, I had about a reach of 100 people. The 5 to 6 months after that, I reached about 6 to 7,000 people. And at this moment, I reach 150,000 people per month on Twitter. So that's just showing the growth. So you have to show sponsors your growth. So from where do you come? How has it been developing? And where are you at this moment? And where do you want to go?
They're not just paying you. They're not just paying you for today. You are offering them a long-term investment, a good relationship that they can come back to, and the numbers will be even higher next time they come back.
Yes, indeed. That's the biggest thing, because what I did with the first 2 seasons of our event, which we host, I had the events on the same Twitter page as the posts from our teams. And I noticed that was not getting a lot of traffic. So what I did last month, I made a new page for our events only. And we went from a reach of 70,000 average per month. We are now at 150,000 simply by splitting up the 2 brands and focusing on what the people want to see. Right. Because if you split it up, by example, you organize events and you are a competitor. If you are doing both things through the same channel, people are less likely to follow because they are also going to see things they are not interested in.
Exactly.
You have to split up your events and participating as a team. You have to split up your brand into things there to make sure that the people who follow it see what they want to see.
Exactly. Focus for the user experience, for the people. Fantastic example. I was not aware that the numbers you are reaching are that high. That is really cool. We'll talk about that next time or later. Thanks, Jarco. I think you pointed out quite a few strong points on how to convince sponsors. It is about numbers, it is about reputation, it is about showing growth, it is about having a good plan and story behind it. Great. With this, I would conclude my questions. Anybody else from the audience? Do you have any more questions for our speaker today? We had quite a few very nice questions already in the chat. Really, like, was very nice flow. We went through the story perfectly. Okay, Jarco, anything else you would like to say? Anything else? I interrupted you 10 times in between. Sorry about that. Yeah.
That's not a problem. No, the only thing I want to say is thank you for letting me speak about my experiences, and also thank you to the audience who is here. I really appreciate that, because this is also a bigger thing for me as well. Like it's the first session where I'm a speaker speaking about my experiences, and that's also something that I look forward into doing more in the future as well. Like this is a first step for me, a bit confirming about what I'm trying to build up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just great overall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Really, I mean, if this was your first time, then kudos to that. You did great. You did great, man. And also the results you're achieving are great. We'll also be talking about that later. Thanks a lot. I'm just pasting in the chat some links. So one is to the feedback for today, one is for our Meetup group, and one is for the Slack channel. Join us there. We can continue the conversations. You will get notifications for the next Meetup events. To conclude, I will just say thanks a lot once again to Jarco and to his story about Dragon Gaming, and his story of building up 6 international teams, and also on event organizing, let's say co-activity, which we'll talk maybe next time. And he outlined his story. He outlined all the challenges. I will just briefly recap the challenges. I wrote some notes, and I will take you by the words. Every next challenge that it came to your mind, you said, this is the biggest one. Oh, no, no, this is the biggest challenge. No, so I have here a list of biggest challenges. So starting from young age, difficult finding people that are passionate, people have different goals, different motivations. Always need to think about the bigger picture. You need to push forward, don't step down. You need to be a guerrilla player, do 10 tasks, then have 10 hats and do it all by yourself. You need to be good at convincing players, explaining your plan, your idea, your goals, be honest about it, don't overpromise. Finding people, not just players, but also other people who help you with the organization, with the management, with the marketing is also a big difficulty. Also for those, you need to give them an experience to be part of this story, to be part of something bigger. And the same goes for sponsors. You need to show them a story, you need to show them results, numbers, be honest about it, and have a great reputation, have a good reputation about it. Thanks a lot, Jarco, once again. Thanks a lot to the audience. It was a great session. It will be uploaded online. Last small bit, in 2 days, we have Valorant meetup. So on Thursday, next week, then we have Women in Gaming meetup on Tuesday, and on Thursday, League of Legends meetup. So we're continuing with the series with esports and gaming meetup. We come back in a month's time. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great evening.
Okay, bye.